and oh, okay. And I just background info. I was born and raised in New York City, so yay for New York City DOE. And I graduated from SUNY New Paltz with an undergraduate degree in painting and drawing, and then I got my art education master's at City College in spring of 2017. I currently live in Northern Virginia, working for Fairfax County, but I was previously working in South Bronx about, I want to say like 5 years ago. I started out as a high school teacher. So right after I graduated, I managed to get a teaching position for high school. So of course I just took it. And I did high school for a couple of years, and then I switched over to elementary school. Elementary school in Fairfax County is K through 6th grade. I know that for New York City DOE, it's 6th grade is in middle school, but so it's interesting to see kind of like that pre-adolescence. And random thing, my favorite color is purple, although I often wear black a lot. All right, so kindergarten. I don't think anything prepared me for what kindergarten is. They are a handful. They're curious. They're crazy. They're also fun. And if you know how to tame them, they can be such an awesome group of artists to teach. So I do have some advice that I want to give you all to hopefully make it not that much of a chaotic class for you. Sometimes it can be a lot to handle with so many of them in one small room together. There are, so we'll just go off to it. If you guys do have questions while I'm talking, you can put it in the chat and I'll try and answer them as I'm talking, and then we can do some more questions at the end. All right, so I have 3 big pieces of advice, and then I've kind of like broken them down a little bit. So the first one is assume nothing and teach everything. Basically, your kindergarten students, you have really no idea where they're coming from before they come into your classroom. So that can mean that some kindergarten students had the chance to do daycare and preschool, which means they have somewhat of an understanding of social skills, communication skills, how to do simple things like hold a pencil or hold scissors. But then there are a lot of kids who don't have that opportunity to have preschool. They are coming straight from home, and if there's anything the pandemic taught is that a lot of these kids probably didn't do preschool. So they don't have those social skills coming into kindergarten, and they also don't know how to do things like hold scissors or ask for help or assistance. So I've just gone in to class assuming that I need to teach everything to them. So this can go into things like teaching them your expectations and showing them examples of them. So to give a perfect example, when my kindergarteners come to me, I see 4 kindergarten classes. When they come to me, they line up outside and they have shark fins on their head, showing me that they're ready to come into class. All right. We practice walking in a line quietly into the classroom and filing in rows to like sit down. So I model this to them, walking in with them, and showing them dots on the floor. So it's a lot of showing them things. I show them, how I'm holding the scissors. So I make sure, it's a lot of, you're going to show them a lot of things, and then you're going to repeat a lot of things. You also want to make sure that you're consistent with them. So you want to make sure that you do things with them every single time that you see them. And then, hold on, my screen is covering. All right. Yeah, so showing them that how to enter into the classroom, showing them how to exit the classroom, showing them how to hold pencils. I show them how to hold their scissors, how to use a glue stick. I show them that if they have questions, how do you raise your hand, or how do you ask for a question? I show them, things like how to sit on the floor versus, how you sit at a seat. So big advice number one, assume nothing, teach everything to them. Any questions so far about this? If it's easier for you to come off the chat, you can. Okay. All right, so I will just go to the next one then. Okay. If you can't beat them, join them. Question. Sorry. This is so true. Oh, cool. Yay. Awesome. All right. All right. So advice number 2, if you can't beat them, join them. Kindergarten is super silly. They're funny, they're crazy, they like to giggle, they like to have fun. So I've noticed that the best way for me to get through class is to try and be funnier than them, to try and be crazier than them. So this means that in the beginning of the class, we do a dance. I've come up with my own song and my own dance to get their wiggles out, and the kids know that we do it before every class. And I dance crazier than the kids. And they love it. What else? Allow your students to be silly and laugh. So when I give things like demonstrations, I change my voice. I kind of do funny things that go along with it. I make mistakes in front of them. And then I'm like, is this okay? Is it okay if I make a boo-boo? I'm teaching them that it's fine to make mistakes in art class. We play a lot of games. We do an art teacher says game, and they go crazy over it. Your voice is your most powerful tool. So I wrote this down because you can change your voice to draw your audience into your class. So I can have a loud projected voice, but then I can also make my voice really soft and seem tiny, and it makes the kids listen more with like intention. Yeah. Any questions about this?
Yeah, I'm curious to know how the dance that you start the class off with, I love that it gets their wiggles out. I'm curious how it changes their energy. Like, does it excite them sometimes too much, or is it kind of the right balance of exciting so that they want to come in and follow directions right away? Like, I'm really curious how that shifts the energy in the room.
I got you. All right. So, I'll just say like what I do in class. Okay. So, I have to stand up because I'm a moving kind of person. So we tiptoe into the classroom. I have little pieces of tape on my floor. It's not even a rug floor, because why would you even want rug in the elementary school art room? It's like worst idea ever. So they sit on the floor they find a dot, and I ring my little bell, and I'm like, macaroni and cheese, everybody freeze. And they got their hands up like this with their funny little Greek pose. And I'm like, are you ready? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, are you ready for art stand up? Gotta wiggle in your body, shake your hands. And then we do this thing, and I'm like this. And then I'm like, if you're ready for art, gotta wiggle in your body, shake your hands, stomp your feet, and do a jig. And then I go like this, and they do this thing too. And I'm like, freeze. And then they freeze. And that's where I say, I noticed so-and-so has such a great sculpture. Oh, I noticed this person is being such a still sculpture. And then I'm like, if you still got the wiggles, do what I do. And they try and mimic what I do, and you know, they're giggles. And then I'm like, if you still need to jiggle, follow my groove. And then we're like this, and you do whatever. And then I'm like, be careful with your body so you don't. And they've memorized this part so well, they just yell it out. They're like, whack nobody, dance around, move about till I say freeze. And then we dance, and they're careful with their body. And then I'm like, freeze. And then I'm like, oh, so-and-so is being so great with his body. And then I'm like, okay, you can dance again. And then I'm like, freeze. So we do that a couple times. And then I'm like, if you're ready for art, take your seat. And it's when they find their seat. And then I'm like, listen to directions, follow me. If you're ready for art and you're ready to get started, crisscross applesauce, Mona Lisa for me. And they have their hands like this. And they're sitting still. Some of them can't do crisscross applesauce. They like to, you know, be like a, you know, sit on their shins. And I'm like, whatever, that's fine, as long as you're on your dot. And then I have this little chalkboard on the front of my room, and I'm like, oh, I noticed that this row has really still artist bodies, and they look like they're ready for art. And I put a line under the smiley face. And I'm like, oh, I noticed that the back row, so-and-so just fixed his body. Let's put another line under the smiley face. So, and then we go over it again, and I'm like, artist, who remembers what happens if we get more lines under the smiley face? And then someone raises their hand, line under the smiley face. We get a sticker. And I'm like, dude, that's so true. We get a sticker. How do we get stickers? By raising our hand, by not talking when other people, so they go like that. And then I'm like, and what happens if we get lines under the frowns? We don't get a sticker. And I'm like, and what happens? How do we get that? Well, if we're moving around, if we're going under the tables, if we're like talking when someone else is talking, so we kind of, again, every day, every time we meet, we go over what getting lines under one side and what getting lines under the other side means, and just keep reminding them and keep reinforcing, oh, thank you so much for raising your hand, line under the smiley face. Thank you so much for remembering that we don't call out, line under the smiley face. So, and then, yeah, I don't know. Did that answer your question? Okay. All right.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. Any other questions so far? No? Okay. I just made a complete fool out of myself, but I do it every day in kindergarten. All right. So, last thing, last big piece of advice is keep it simple. Your kids are excited anyway to be in art. They get to leave their classroom to go to another classroom, and it's like a field trip for them. So you don't have to make your art lessons complex. Really, they're learning foundational skills. They're learning fine motor skills. They're also learning just how to talk and be with people in your class, and learning routines and following expectations. So I keep my lessons really, really simple. My school is a Title I school, so a lot of my students are special education and ESOL students, and also kindergarten students. A lot of them are going through the IEP transition. So meaning that their kindergarten teachers are either testing them for an IEP or a 504. So they're starting to get those services. So you don't really kind of know yet what it is that a kid may or may not have. So it's just best, I keep it simple for them so that they can all find a way to be successful in the class. So we do a lot of things like practicing our fine motor skills. So we've spent like a month and we keep practicing this, how to hold their scissors. All right. And we spend a couple weeks just practicing cutting shapes. And that's all we did. And then we practiced gluing them onto a piece of paper. And the excitement that they get from changing a square to like an awkward looking circle is like, they're thrilled that they can do it. It's like so cool for them. And it just wows them. It doesn't have to be like a glorified project. They're just excited to be there. So I wouldn't overthink your lessons, and you can do things like just starting with simple materials. Kids are crazy about watercolors. If you don't want to give them paint because you're freaking out about paint with kindergarten, I totally understand. I give them watercolors, and we do crayons with watercolors, and it's like magic for them. They're stoked on it. So I keep it simple in my class. Yeah, I would keep my lessons simple. So I have a couple of art projects that I took pictures of and I put them on. Oh, I see a chat. This was my question too. So does that mean I answered it? Okay, all right, cool. So here are a couple of lessons. So this one, Fairfax County does this thing where like for each grade is like a theme. I'm not like super stoked on it, but so I don't follow it to a T, to be honest. But it is nice sometimes because kindergarten is actually the self. So we learn a lot about, drawing ourselves, figuring out, who we are, and it gets the kids from drawing a stick figure and their face, like how we're very young, like kids just have a circle and like 4 lines coming out. So we go from that to something like way more developed, and it's so cool to see it at the end. So for this project, we talk about the colors of the rainbow. So we do like a whole song that goes with it. And then I demo to them, how we use the watercolors because it's the first time that we use it. So I'm like, you have to tiptoe I was like, your paintbrush tiptoes on the paint. I was like, look how it's tiptoeing. And then you're going to swoop, swoop, swoop like a skater on the paper. And then like, what do you have to do after? If you want a new color, it has to go for a bath. And I'm like, of course. So you're going to let him go for a bath into the water. So you go swish, 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 swish. And then you're going to wipe it on the lip, but you're not going to put it on these lips. You're going to put it on the lip of the cup. All right. And then you're going to pick your new color. So then we practice, making sure that we are not dipping, the paintbrush in different colors and everything like that. And then the next day, so literally day 1 is just painting our background. And then the next day, we talk about a body. So I give them whiteboards. So it's so easy for them to erase without, doing it on a piece of paper. And then they love freaking whiteboard. I don't know what it is about whiteboards, but they go crazy over it. So we practice body with a whiteboard. And then the next day I give them a pencil, and we kind of do like a follow along, and then they add their whole bunch of details, and then they get to go over it with a Sharpie. And that's like huge for them because they're like, it's a permanent marker. And I'm like, yes, it is, but don't tell your teachers that you're using it in art class. So they do such a good job with tracing over, because it's like the fact that they get to use a Sharpie is like huge. And then the last day we go over cutting around something. And that literally takes like the whole class time, and then gluing it down. That being said, my classes are like 45 minutes, kindergarten. So and then they glue it down, and they're stoked on it. Okay. Were there any questions about that, or can I go on? Okay. All right. So this one is just a bust portrait. So again, we talk about what a portrait is, and here we do a lot of reading in my class. So I'll read them a lot of books, and we read a book about different jobs. And then we talk about like drawing a face. And so they draw a face, they draw their face with a pencil, and then they get to outline it. And then the next day we talk about, you know, coloring and different skin tones. And then they pick a job that they would like to do in the future. And then they add things like we talk about like what a symbol is. And then, you know, we add different images to help kind of reflect like the job that they want. Pretty simple. I think this kind of lesson can go with like a lot of, you can have it do something with like, you know, what are you going to do, you know, over the summer? And it can be like a picture of them, and then like their background could be like what they're doing over the summer, something like that. We do a collage. This takes days. This is definitely after we've just practiced cutting like a square, a triangle, a circle, an oval. For things like this, it's a lot of, we do a lot of like art teacher says like say, see, do things. So I say something, I do it. Well, I say something, they see me do it, and then we all do it together. So, and then, you know, you can tell like some kids, you know, go a little bit overboard with it, but I think they're so awesome. They go to town with it. And then sometimes I've been thinking about doing one where it's kind of 3D and pop up. So it's something that I'm like working on, but this kind of really practices their cutting skills, because my students are they're very low with their fine motor skills. They don't really get a lot of chances to use scissors and glue. So this gives them a great chance to practice. A lot of kindergarten teachers, well, kindergarten art teachers will do like seasonal projects just to keep them engaged. So we did this project. It's just like a snowman project where they got a chance to explore different materials. So they, you know, practiced watercolors. They got to practice their cutting, and then they got to have like a glimpse of what paint is with the white paint, because we get a chance to use it again later. But I kind of like it just because like they're all different. We read a book, we read a winter book, and I think it's like the Snowmen Out at Night book, where it's like kind of really, it's a really funny book. I'll have to remember the name of it. But like I did this one last year, but then this year we did a cut paper project. So we did like snowmen, but collage, and they practiced like cutting trees too. And that took several days, but it was great because they really needed to practice using scissors. So here is, we talk about shape people. So we do, like the dance, the head's connected to the arms connected to the shoulder, like that thing. And then I do this like, can you find a circle? So I have a tray at every table with a whole bunch of different shapes. And I'm like, can you find the circle? And then the kid finds a circle and I'm like, put it up in the air if you have a circle. And then they all show that they have a circle, and then they glue their circle down. And then I'm like, what's connected to your circle? Your neck. All right. So someone can you guys find me like a small square? And they find a small square and then they glue it down. So this took a little time just because it was, I had to pre-cut all the shapes. This was before we even started cutting. This was just practicing gluing. But I think they did a great job. Some kids like had super fun and change. I just like how they're all different. And then to the right, we do a little paper sculpture. So we talk about taking paper that's flat, giving them like weight, giving them feet so that they can stand up and be a sculpture. And we talk about a sculpture as being something that you can see all around, like from all sides. So they have different strips. So I cut up a whole bunch of strips, leave them at their table, and they get to like play with that. And that's super fun. Okay. I feel like I spoke really fast. Any questions?
I've got one about where you do your demonstrations. So it sounds like it's really interactive, right? Like you're speaking, the kids are doing. Are you demoing at, well, while they're sitting on the floor, or mostly when they're at the table, or is it some sort of combination?
So it's a combination of both. Yeah. So we come into they take a seat on the table, on the ground, and I have a little, like a document camera at my I use a student table. I took my teacher table out to use a student table, so it's very small. And it's up in the front next to the projector. And we'll go through our, if we read a book, we read a book, and then we talk about what we're going to do today or continue our project. And I do my demonstration. And then I call off by table color. If this is your table, walk to your table. So then we all walk to our tables, and they Mona Lisa show me that they're ready to get their artwork or get ready to get their materials. And they get the materials, and I remind you, my students, our kindergartners struggle a lot, so they need a lot of showing again and a lot of singular kind of steps. So it may not be the same for your class. They may be able to get their materials and then remember what it is that they're doing and go right to work. The kids that I have can't handle that, and it's just a little bit harder for us. So they get their work, and if it's something like they just need to color, or we're just painting a background and it was that simple, I let them to it. If it's something like showing them how to draw something, like, oh, we're going to be drawing the face again, or we're going to be practice drawing our body, I'll do a thing like, okay, so who remembers what's the first thing that we do if we're drawing our head? You need to draw an oval. All right, so put your hand on the ground and you're going to draw a big rainbow. All right, show me that you've done this part. And then they show me by this. Instead of saying, I'm done, we just go like this. And then I'm like, okay, so what's the next step? So it's a little bit of both. Yeah. I think it's important to read your audience and to really understand like your students' backgrounds to be able to know like how you can teach them. Any other questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for like explaining exactly what you do when they walk into the classroom, because
Okay.
I like struggle with getting, I guess, the class back from being silly. And it's like
Okay.
so much about tone. And I just heard your tone and I was like, yes.
Yeah. I go from like a 100 to like a 20.
Yeah.
You can be super, super silly with them, and that really gets them engaged and stoked. And then like when it's time to be like serious, you have to model the behavior. We spent like the first month and a half like modeling behavior, just practicing this, remembering that when you get a piece of paper, you write your name on the back. Remembering that when we come into the classroom, you're not coming in running around like a maniac. You're coming in, you're running around and you're finding a sticker on the floor and you're taking a seat. All right. It's a lot of modeling behavior. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, well, you mentioned that you have a projector where you are working on a table and they're looking at the projector when they're doing the projects.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Do you do that for every project or sometimes you do it differently?
I often show them stuff on the projector, and then while they're off in their tables working on their stuff, I'll leave my projector on with my example there so that they see it. And then I'll have like my finished, like a finished example, like up on the board. So that they can, I kind of like have it taped up on the wall so they can see a finished product. And then I just will walk around to tables. I'll do like a check-in, like, oh, this table looks like they're ready for the next step. And then I run back to my screen and I'll do the next thing. So the projector's kind of always on because it's also connected to the internet where I have my little timer. So they can see the timer too. Although they don't know how to read it, they know that the timer is going down. So they're like, we only have like 20 minutes until art's done. And I'm like, no, it's more like 2 minutes, but okay. Yeah, so the projector's on. I don't do like presentation slides that much with the kids with kindergarten. Just because I don't want to feel like I'm reading off things to them. We kind of, I kind of prefer that I talk to them while I'm showing an example. Like, we'll be drawing a face and I'm like, can someone with a hand show me what it is that I should do next? And then like they raise their hand and I'm like, you should do this. Oh, that's great. Oh no, I just made a boo-boo. Is that okay? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, if you just make a boo-boo, just keep going. We just keep going and, I prefer to do more conversation with the kids while I give a example. Yeah. Any other questions? Any routines that anyone needs to know about? Kindergarten is crazy over stickers. So
I'd love to know what you do for cleanup routine. Like maybe you have an example for one specific material. I feel like that's an area that this year I'm really struggling to. We usually do like a call and response. And in
okay.
the past, I feel like the kids have really enjoyed it. And this year I find they're having a lot of side conversation. So I'm like,
Okay.
is it boring? Like where am I missing? What am I doing wrong?
Is so just like how to get the kids to clean up in general.
Yeah, if you can share one material that you have, if you have a specific routine for it, I'd love to know.
Okay, so whenever just to start cleaning up anything, I ring my bell, and then the kids all know that when I ring a bell, their hands have to be up, like this. And and they know that if their hands aren't up like this, you know, after I've kind of looked around and people are still doing stuff, that they get a line under the frowny face. They know that that's one of my expectations. I keep my steps for cleaning up very simple, because if I give them too many jobs, they don't remember anything. So I keep it, I would do like 3 or less things. And I would say something like, I'm going to give you, there are 3 steps. Step number 1, all right. Crayons in the box and in the middle of your table. Step number 2, artwork on the purple table with your name on the back. Step number 3, I don't know, scrap pieces of paper in the bin. And then, like, they all know at the end, take a seat when you're done. Mona Lisa ready, showing me that you're ready. So I'm very like clear and to the point, and I don't give them too many things. As for painting with them, to be honest, it gives me a lot of anxiety. I feel like sometimes it can be absolute chaos, and sometimes you may just have to handle all of the chaos. What's the material that you're struggling with?
I guess it's less the material, more, well, we're doing painting right now. So like,
Okay.
I share your same woes about, you know, even if they're doing everything, there's like the unpredictables, like the spill in the middle of everything. But mostly it's just the side conversation. I have a few kids that just like are kind of cleaning up, but like also just interested in socializing at the same time. And I guess it's not clear to me, like, I don't want to sit them out for a timeout because they do need to participate in cleanup. So it's this, like, what's the consequence? I don't know. I have to reflect, I think.
Have you tried to have a conversation with them? Like, I've noticed that when we clean up, you are making the choice to talk with your friends and not help our class. You know, if we keep chatting during cleanup, maybe next time you won't have the opportunity. Maybe next time I can't give you the opportunity to work with the materials if you're not going to clean them up.
Yeah.
It's hard to have those kinds of conversations with kindergarten, because they're just kindergarten. I'm like, they don't know anything. But it's also teaching them, like, hey, if you're going to use these materials, you also got to clean them up. And if you're not going to clean them up, maybe you shouldn't use the materials, and I'll just give you some crayons instead.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could try that. It could
Yeah. I gotta think through it. I appreciate the advice.
Yeah. It's kindergarten, but they can handle a talk like that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have another question.
Sure.
I'm wondering, at like what point in the year, or I guess at what point in the year do you start doing projects with them that are like not less like, I guess, cutting shapes and more like, okay, like we're gonna start to like make things? Because I think my perception is so off. I'm not a public school teacher yet. I'm in the program now, getting my certification. And I work in an after school like art school where we do kindergarten, first grade, and second grade all together. And it's like boot camp. They do plaster, they do acrylic paint, like as soon as they walk in.
That's
and
amazing.
They've all like I know, it's crazy. But I like it, but it's crazy. And I think like I just like my like it is chaos, so I'm like kind of like very wary of kindergarten and the whole like younger elementary what to do, just because it's just, you know, it's almost like boot camp.
Yeah.
But like at what point do they start in your class working with more materials, and initially, is it just kind of like learning how to use the supplies?
I mean, we're making projects. We're working on a project right now. I just break up the project to so many steps so that they're not overwhelmed with it. And just for time's sake. So we're doing kind of like right now we're doing like a mixed media portrait where they're doing like a drawing of themselves, but then their background is kind of like a collage project with a whole bunch of, so I don't know how to explain it. The background is like a whole bunch of different types of lines that they're originally going to cut from a piece of paper. So they're going to cut like a zigzag, they're going to cut like a wavy line, they're going to cut a straight line, they're going to cut, you know, kind of like a curved line, and then they're going to glue them all to this background in a different kind of way. So that's like their background. That's going to be like one day. And then the next day, it's going to be like their face. They're working on the portrait, and then they're going to work on putting it on there, combining it together. So we are working on projects. I just break them up. So I just break the projects down so much that it doesn't really seem like it right now until like the very end, when we put everything together. If I gave them all the materials at once, they'd be so overwhelmed and so excited they wouldn't know what to do with it. I am very particular about how I'm giving them things. So I am not going to, like, we made pinch pots this year. So kindergarten does ceramics every year. So we did pinch pots. We practiced the first time, we practiced with Play-Doh, just so that they would know how to make a pinch pot and how to do all of that. Then the second day, I give them their real clay. We make their pinch pot. I don't give them a whole bunch of tools because they're going to go crazy and destroy the beautiful pinch pot that they made. I each give them two tools, just two tools, and they can do designs on it. Then when they're done, they raise their hand. I write their name on the bottom, and then we put it away. After they're fired, or the day that we start painting them, they get to pick two colors, one for the inside, one for the outside. I really limit the amount of materials that they can have. So there's no things like messes, no things like chaos. They know exactly what it is that they need to do with the materials. I'm not overwhelmed and crazy and they still get to have a good time. Yeah, I really manage the materials that they use. Yeah, that's like one of the big things that I've learned last year, was limiting their materials on their table. So if they're ready to use something else, they can raise their hand and we can do something called a trade. So they'll trade me this for that. So I'll give them something else. So that seems to work really well. It's really like minimized our messes. We didn't have any spills with glaze this year. It was great. And everyone was super happy with the pinch pot. But yeah, we do projects. I just we take our time with it. Yeah. Okay. I don't know what else to say.
Do we have any more questions?
I don't know if the slides were helpful at all. If you wanted me to email them to you, if you would like them, or on the bottom is my email. If you guys ever need to email me, that's one of my students. He's now in first grade and he's killing it. I think I would just remember that kindergarten really loves art. They haven't really had the chance yet to explore, and oftentimes their specials are their only time to leave their classroom. So it's like a really exciting time for them. And this kid just needed extra time that day, so he stayed a couple minutes after because he wasn't getting he was getting a little frustrated. But I would just yeah, it's fun to be silly with them, and just, you know, I would just remember to teach them everything. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Yes, I just
Bye.
want to thank Sarah for this really wonderful conversation, and thanks for being so thorough and detailed with your overview. It was really great. I know that Marit is planning on putting these recordings up on, I think, the department site. And Sarah, if you want to email me this, I can just make sure I email it out to everyone who RSVP'd for the session.
Awesome.
Again, have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Have fun dancing with your kids. Bye.